G'day Sainers. Hope you're all having a fantastic week. It's Thursday. You know what that is. It's team announcement day. It's preview time. So we're going to get stuck into it. We're going to talk about St Kilda versus Geelong, the massive game tomorrow night. Friday night football, Marvel Stadium, prime time. G'day Jake. It's a huge test. Just get straight into it. It's a huge test. It was already going to be a difficult game. We knew that going into this week, especially after the shaky game on the weekend against the Gold Coast. We got the win, but it was a shaky game nonetheless. And now we've just seen the shitty news. The news that we all didn't want to hear. Zak Jones out indefinitely, it looks like at the moment. Ruptured his quad, I believe. I think Tom Brown reported that he had surgery today. I'm not sure if that's accurate because Tom Brown usually does like to make up a lot of shit. But in this case, let's say that he's correct. That's usually probably a 10-weeker sort of scenario for recovery, getting into training, running again and getting back up and ready for returning to senior football. So if we make finals, that's probably when we get Zak Jones back, which isn't a bad time to get someone like Zak Jones. It's just shitty to know that he's been in our best the last 2 weeks. In most of our wins against West Coast, the second half, he was huge. He was massive in the Hawthorn game. His stats just said it. He dominated from start to finish. And then last week, he had a really good game and had over 30 possessions again. So to do what he did, match simulate. We cop all these injuries out of match sim. Can the boys just not do match simulation during the week and just jog? That'd be great. But he is injury prone. It's something that we knew going into trading for him. We knew that could be a risk and it's proven correct. But we also get some big games out of him every now and then. But it's a shame that every 3 to 4 weeks, you can't guarantee that he's going to be fit. So fingers crossed the surgery went well and he can rest up and we can still play well and get some important wins so that we can make finals and then get players like him back, Jaron Geary back, a few other returning players from injury as well. So that's the main negative of the preview. It's a shitty way to start it, but you all knew I was going to raise it. The news was just announced and confirmed by the club. Yeah, that's the downside. Let's go through the teams. Comment your thoughts. I know you've all probably seen the teams already, but we'll go through them again anyway. Let me know what you think. There's probably one main surprise there, but even seeing the other player coming in is a mini surprise for some people. But we'll go through them now. So we'll talk about the ins first. We've got James Frawley debuting his first game, official game for the Red, White and Black. He seemingly retired from Hawthorn. We got him back and he did his hamstring in the Carlton game in the community series in the first quarter and he's returned slowly. He had VFL game last week and was pretty good and didn't get to play last week because they had a bye, but he's back this week. So it's a bit risky bringing in someone only really off the back of one VFL performance, but he's a senior body. He's been there, he's done that. And he's especially been there and done that on someone like Tom Hawkins, who is in good form, had a massive game last week, and he's done a good job on him. He kept him goalless last year when Geelong, I think, smashed Hawthorn by nearly 10 goals or whatever it was down at Cardinia Park. Chip Frawley's kept Hawkins to 0. So that's pretty impressive considering how dominant Geelong were against Hawthorn last year. Prior to that, it's been 2 goals, 1 goal, 4 goals, 1 goal, 2 goals sort of scenario. So you'd say he's probably averaging 1 to 2 goals on Chip Frawley. It's a bit upsetting because I thought Darragh Joyce was actually pretty good last week and he's made the most of his time at senior level. But when you've got someone like James Frawley, who we got exactly for this reason, we got him to play on the Gorillas, to play on the big boys, to play in the big games, and to just do an honest job on these guys that he's played against for over 10 years. So it wouldn't really make sense to ignore a James Frawley that's fit. He's trained all week. Rat says he's ready to go, so I can't wait to see him out there and taking on the big Tomahawk, because his performance against Tomahawk is going to go a long way to deciding if we're a chance in this game. So big up for Frawley, and hopefully has a massive game tomorrow night. The next one is Seb Ross, who's returning. He was a laid out last week. He had twin boys, I believe. He and his partner Marnie. So congratulations to Seb. He only missed for that, so he comes straight back in. And I guess that it reduces the hurt that we're going to feel from losing someone like Zak Jones. I know Seb isn't a speedster like Jones, but he's a tough nut. He can get his own ball. He can get a lot of the ball, and he's flexible enough that he can do a negating job too. So he can actually go and tag, a Duncan or a Guthrie if we absolutely need him to. I don't know if we're going to go into this game too defensively minded. That's not really the Rats' way. He wants to attack and play on our terms. For good or for bad, we don't know, but I think that Seb being back in at least takes the pain away from missing Zak Jones, even for a little bit. The next one is Tom Highmore. So a lot of people have messaged me saying, Jake, why isn't Highmore getting a game, this and that? And I said, well, we've got Caulfield in the team. He's not getting in when Caulfield's playing. We're not going to play 2 intercept halfbacks. Very like for like. The only reason Highmore would ever play, and this is what I told a lot of people, is Caulfield's either injured or is dropped. And judging by the outs, which we'll get into now, Nick Caulfield's been omitted. And he did look slow last week. Anyone that was at the ground at Metricon, he looked like he had concrete, footy boots on. It was just like he was carrying an extra 20 kilos and he couldn't run. I didn't think he was the worst on ground. I still thought he actually did some nice things. But last year we saw him running around plays, rebounding and using his speed a little bit. This year, not so much. And I don't know if he's carrying a bit of a niggle or is just out of form and out of confidence, because, no confidence can actually influence your body. And maybe that's why he's not looking as fast as he did last year, as he's not pushing himself as much. But that's caused him to be omitted. So if he was injured, they'd probably mark him as injured, but he's listed as omitted. And you look at Zak Jones, he's listed as injured, obviously. So if Nick Caulfield was injured, he probably would have been listed as injured, but he's listed as omitted. So I'll just take that on its merits. Caulfield omitted, out of form, and Tom Highmore had a massive game in the VFL a couple of weeks ago. He had 30 possessions and 14 marks in the rain. So he's earned his spot. It's not like he's just being brought in for the sake of it because Caulfield's out of form. He's actually earned his spot. He's played in that position. He's done really well. He's a mature body. We brought him in. He's 22 or 23 already. So, yeah, we'll see how he goes. But I'm excited to see him. I think it mixes things up a little bit. It's funny that we talk about, people are talking about the three-headed monster in Geelong, and it's Rowan, Cameron, and Hawkins. And the classic Saints, we're just like, yep, we're playing the most formidable forward line in the comp at the moment, so we're going to make 2 changes to our back line. No stability there. It's but it could bring stability. So we've lost Joyce, who's been good, but he hasn't played on a big gorilla like Hawkins before. And we've lost Caulfield, who's kind of been out of form the last couple of weeks. And we bring in Frawley, who hasn't really had much football this season, obviously, with his injury. But he's been there and done that. The opposite of Joyce. And Tom Highmore, who has less experience than Caulfield, but he's probably more in form than Caulfield. So it may be an upgrade. We don't know. We're going to have to see how they go tomorrow night. But Caulfield's great by foot. Frawley's a very honest defender. I think, yeah, they're 2 pretty logical decisions when you look at it. But yeah, if we get done tomorrow night by 10 goals, a lot of people are going to be saying, well, why did we do that? Why did we bring in Frawley and not give Joyce the game? But if we win, we'll say it's a masterstroke from Rats and the team. So hopefully that's what we're talking about tomorrow night. The other one is Mason Wood. He was the late in for Seb Ross last week, and that was a bit of an odd choice, I thought. Mason Wood's not a like-for-like for Seb, and disappointingly, he just didn't do anything. He had 5 disposals, didn't impact the game in any way, didn't stand out, and he didn't make his claim for the team to say, hey, I want to play every week. So he's looking like the player that North delisted, to be honest. It's brutal to say that, but that's kind of where he's at the moment. He'll play at Sandy and hopefully get some consistency and see what happens there, but at the moment, you wouldn't think Mason Wood's in calculations to play senior footy for a little while longer. So those are the ins and outs. Frawley in, Ross in, Highmore in, Joyce, Mason Wood, Nick Caulfield, Zak Jones are the outs. And in terms of milestones, we'll go through those quickly. Jimmy Webster playing his 100th game. So congrats to Jimmy Webster. That's huge. It's taken him about 50 million years to get to the 100 because of all of his injuries. But finally, he's reached it. He's been very important for us this season, and I think he's going to have a big say in tomorrow night's game. Whether Wilkie goes to Gary Rowan or a Jimmy Webster could play that role as well. He's got a bit more speed than Wilkie and physicality, so it could suit us to go with him and then release Wilkie to be that rebounder a bit more, to be the third man up and to use his foot skills to spread the ground a little bit. So we've got some flexibility in that back line, which is good. And then that brings me to the next milestone. Cal Wilkie, 50th game, so massive for him. An accountant, the accountant we call him, gets the phone call. St Kilda want him. I think he went through 3 or 4 drafts and didn't get picked up, and we pick him up in the rookie draft. And he's played 50 of a possible 50 games for the St Kilda Football Club. He's played 49 of 49. He will play 50 of 50 tomorrow night. So that's massive. That shows just the consistency of this guy. He does the job every single week. You rarely see me or see another Saint say, geez, Cal Wilkie's played a shit game. You don't hear that. You hear that everyone else has played a shit game, and he's always the positive. Yeah, at least, Wilkie can hold his head high. He did the job. Geez, how good was Wilkie? Shame no one else was that good. He's Mr. Reliable, just as Josefina's just said there. So, congratulations to both of those boys. Hopefully we put in a big performance for them. We haven't been very good with milestone games this year, or at any type of big game. Spud's game, Maddie's match, you name it. Steele's 100th. It's just not been good form for us. So hopefully tomorrow night we can come out and get put in a good performance for those boys and for the supporters that are going to be there and keep our season up and running basically. Geelong, as you would expect, they've got one out, Sam Simpson. So I assume he was the emergency last week, and they're probably going to tweak that. But they've gone in unchanged. They've got their forward lines, the one area that you probably need to negate. Their backlines, it's not makeshift, it's pretty stable, but I think it's there to be got at. But you need to get it in there with speed. You need to be leading and spreading. Geelong are one of those teams where they always support each other. Henderson runs off his man to impact the contest. Blixarves is flexible. He'll probably go in the ruck at times, rotating with Radigalia. And then you've got Henry, Zach Guthrie, Tom Stewart, who's the one that absolutely killed us last season. He just marked everything. I think we tried to play Jaron Geary as that defensive forward on someone like Tom Stewart, who's 6'5", and Geary's probably just 6'1" maybe. So big height difference there. My idea of negating, and I think we're going to go with it, judging by where Stewart is on this team list and then where Josh Battle is on this team list. But I think Battle could be a very good defensive forward against someone like Tom Stewart. It'll make him accountable. He's like for like in terms of size, if not bigger than Tom Stewart. And Tom Stewart knows that he can't run off someone like Josh Battle, because if Josh Battle's alone, we're going to be kicking it to him all day long, and he's going to be kicking the goals while Tom Stewart's running off and trying to impact Max King and Tim Membry. So I think that we've got a better forward line. We've got a better team than we did when we played Geelong last time. Zak Jones, funnily enough, didn't actually play that game, but we missed Paddy Ryder in that game. And this is the next area where I think we can get Geelong, is the rucks. Paddy Ryder, Rowan Marshall. And now this Rowan Marshall is labelled at full forward, which I love. The full forward line is Tim Membry, Rowan Marshall, Max King. There's height there, there's flexibility, there's X factor, there's speed, there's everything there. And you've got Butler at half forward with Jack Higgins high up, and then you've got Battle. So if that's the way we start, I feel like we're just going to be trying to isolate Marshall, King, and Membry as much as we can, and Butler and Higgins are just going to push up and impact the wing and then push towards goal, as opposed to just waiting out the back for cheap goals, because you can't do that against Geelong. You're going to have to be running, spreading, and causing chaos. And our boys supposedly watched the game last week against Geelong, against Richmond. They watched the Geelong-Richmond game, so that's good to see. Hopefully they've taken some notes there and looked at how Richmond exploited Geelong in the first quarter in particular. The rest of the game, I think, it was just perfect football from Geelong. It was similar to us against West Coast in the last quarter. They just couldn't do anything wrong. And Cameron kicked 6, Hawkins kicked 4, and I think Gary Rowan kicked 5. So there was 15 goals between 3 players. I don't think that's sustainable. I hope it's not. If they do that again, we're in for a tough night. But I think that was just one of those games where You play the perfect football, it comes off, it doesn't matter who you're playing, whether it's the reigning premier or it's the bottom team, you're just going to look amazing. And yeah, they've been, they've clicked at times this season. They smashed West Coast by nearly over 100 points, and they beat Richmond by over 10 goals. But the first half last week, Richmond were on. They were all over them. They should have been further up at quarter time, and then for some reason they got complacent, which is very unlike Richmond, and Geelong took them to the cleaners after that. So Geelong were very good, but I think there was a bit with Richmond there, and they just weren't playing their way after quarter time. So I'm not reading too much into that second half. Obviously, we as a club would go into this game preparing for Geelong's best, which was last week in that second half. That's absolutely their best. Their best, you couldn't get better than that really from any team. It was that good. But if they're not on that sort of level tomorrow night, our pressure's on and we're chasing, and we've got that Saints footy sort of swagger back that we had last year, where we're chasing, tackling, and not fearful of the opposition. I think we've got a chance. And I think the fact that we've mixed it up, we've got Frawley back, Highmore, we're missing Jones, and I know that hurts, and I know a lot of people, I had over 50, 60 messages on Instagram last night, people saying, Jake, we're stuffed now, we can't win, what's going on? I'm like, yes, it hurts. But he is not the reason we're going to win or we're going to lose the game tomorrow night. The reason we're going to win or lose tomorrow night is how well we tackle, how well we chase, and how well we convert. Last week, we didn't convert when we should have. Tomorrow night, their forward line, not only are they, they kicked a lot of goals last week, they kicked bloody straight. Tom Hawkins is a dead-eye dick from anywhere on the ground. Cameron is a very good kick. Gary Rowan, at his best, is a very good kick. So when they get their chances, they take them 9 times out of 10. We need to make sure we match that, especially early. If they get the jump on us, we need to make sure that it doesn't get away from us, because the game can go away fast, and you know how we've been this season, guys. We put our heads down and we don't fight it out. But hopefully tomorrow, it's Friday night, we've copped a few beatings in primetime games this season. The boys better rock up, and they've done it the last 2 weeks. Hawthorn was a pretty easy win in the end. They needed to get their chocolates there, and they did, and they got it well. Last week they had to grind, and who knows how much the second half against Richmond took out of Geelong. They did not stop running. They were going berserk. We don't know how much that can affect them. Only 2 weeks ago, North played them at the Cattery in Geelong, and North were ahead for a lot of that game, and they looked pretty good. And Adelaide's beaten Geelong. Sydney came back from 5 goals down against Geelong. Melbourne beat Geelong by nearly 5 goals pretty comfortably. Geelong, I just want to put it out there to the people that are going into this game in a pessimistic mindset. Geelong are 5 wins and 3 losses out of 8. That is 1 more win than us. 1. A lot of people are messaging me saying, we're no chance. Why are you going? Why? That's ridiculous, first of all. It's not like Geelong are 8-0 like Melbourne and dominating the comp. This isn't the Geelong from 09 to 13-14 and a couple of years ago last year when they made the granny. This isn't the same Geelong. Yes, they've got a very good forward line, but their back line is there to be got at. Their midfield, if we get first use with Ryder, which we've been getting the last 2 weeks, when I think we're the 4th or 3rd best team for clearances. They're second, but they haven't played us or Paddy Ryder yet. If we're getting first use, it doesn't matter how good their midfield is if they're not getting the ball. We need to ensure that they don't get their hands on it. Last week, Richmond allowed that. Richmond have notably a small midfield. They had Bolton in there. They had Edwards, Ross. They have these guys. We've got some bulls in there. Steele, Crouch, Ross comes back in. I can't wait to see how Vital goes. Burns will rotate through there. I dare say that Sinclair will go through there. Maybe even Billings and Higgins. For a team that's missing Hanbury, Jones, these sort of guys, Gresham in the midfield, we have a lot of depth rotating through that middle of the ground. They're not absolute stars, but there's rotations. Geelong have got their starting 4 or 5 they always go with. It's going to be Selwood, it's going to be Menengola, it's going to be Guthrie, Duncan, Parfitt's probably the other one that might go through there at times. Those are the players that you have to worry about. That's 5 or 6 of them. We've got 8 or 9 that could go through there. And I'm not saying they're better. I'm not saying our mids are better than Geelong's mids. I'm just saying that the rotations over the course of a 4-quarter game, if it's a grueling slog, could actually be telling. So I'm going into this game, limited expectation. I'm not going there saying, yeah, we're going to flog them. You know, we all want them to win, but I'm not going there with that attitude. I'm going there hoping that the boys turn up and we make this like a final. I said that on the podcast. We have our predictions and we talk about what we want to see from the game. I just want to see us throw some bodies around. I want to see bloody Dukes punch the ball and punch the back of Tom Hawkins' head. I want to see Butler smash, Zach Guthrie holding the ball. I want to see some unsociable football from our club. Geelong have bullied us for too long. Last year we got over some bogey teams in Adelaide and Port and Sydney, especially those teams that we haven't beaten in ages. I believe we haven't beaten Geelong since 2016 when Jack Stephen kicked that toe poke goal at the end of the game. And I think we were near the bottom and they were right at the top. That was 2016. That's 5 years ago. Funnily enough, I'm pretty sure that's the last time we played Geelong at Marvel Stadium, or maybe it was 2017. 2016 we beat them. 2017 we might have played them at Marvel. So it's been probably 4 or 5 years since we played them at Marvel. So we played them at Geelong 2 or 3 times since then. 2018 we did when Robbo went down. 19, 20, 19 we did, and 20 was obviously at the Gabba. So Marvel creates a different sort of scenario. MCG last week, they were able to spread. They could run Richmond off their feet. Marvel, it's a bit more congested. It might actually work into our hands a bit more, making it more of a slog. If we allow them to just chip the ball around, play that Geelong way, which they probably will. Knowing them, they played fast last week because I think Richmond forced them to play fast, because when they were chipping it around, Richmond were just pressuring too much and they knew, well, we need to stop this by just going direct. They went direct and it worked perfectly. I think that with us, they're probably going to go back to what happened last year and just think, well, just keep the ball off St Kilda and chip it around and we'll pick them off slowly. Death by 1,000 cuts sort of scenario. So if they go back into that, it'll be interesting to see how we counter that. But if they try to play fast, that gives us at least more space. So when teams play fast against us, I think that can actually work into our hands a little bit. But it's going to be an interesting game. This is a massive game for our club. It's a big game for our season. 4-4, we win this, we go 5-4, and we play the Dogs, which is another massive game on the Saturday night the week after. And then after that, I think we have North, Adelaide, and Sydney, all at Marvel, all winnable, and then the bye. So, or Adelaide's in Cairns, sorry. So there's some games there that we can definitely win if we're on form. So I think this lineup's good. I'm excited to see Burns, Steele, Crouch do their work. So yeah, it's going to be a big one, but that's kind of my take on it. I'm just low expectations, just going in there, enjoying the footy. I'm going to be with some Geelong supporters, so that's going to be a bit of a test for me. See how I handle that, but good banter is good banter. So hopefully I can give them some shit, because last year I copped it a bit from them, so it'd be good to return the favour. Now let's go through some of your comments. It's a bit of a rant there from me, but thanks for tuning in, guys. Let's keep it going. This one's from Duncan. Pressure on the ball carrier to the Saints and stick the tackles. Go Saints. Great show as always, Jake. Go Saints. Thanks, Duncan. Darren says, if we give the Cats as much space as we have given opponents in every game we have lost this year, we will get murdered. Agree there. We cannot give them space. We need pressure to be through the roof in this game for 4 quarters. Not 1, not 2, not 3, for the entire game. Like I said, this needs to be a final. It needs to feel like a final at the ground. Whether we're in front or not, it's irrelevant for me. I just want to know that we're chasing, we're tackling, and we're hunting. Josephino says, let's hope Rowan goes missing after his big game last week. Hope so too, mate, to be honest. Lisa says, just turn up on the big stage. Saints hope they make us proud with effort by telling Burns to step up. That's from Josephino. Yeah, that's the one thing that I think is a main positive with Zak Jones being out. I didn't even mention him. Hunter Clark, he'll go into the middle more. He might be a permanent mid. He's been rotating wing, half back, half forward because of the depth I've had in the middle with Jones, Crouch, Steele, Ross. But with a couple missing there, with Jones missing especially, there's a chance Hunter Clark goes in there, that Vital can get more minutes in there, Burns can develop, he's got some toe, and he's known to be a very good clearance player. So if he can pick up where Jones has left off, it's going to be a big help for us tomorrow night. Ian says, would like to see Ben Long in to play on Menengola, horses for courses. Yeah, I don't think Ben Long's playing, mate. Sorry about that. Canis, his thoughts on putting money on the Saints to win. They're at $3.20. Yeah, I wouldn't. It's $3.20. It's pretty good odds. I mean, it's blown out since the Jones news. I think before that we're about $2.90. So it's blown out since then. But yeah, why not? Don't condone gambling. Gamble responsibly. But if you want, yeah, throw some money on them. I'm not going to stop you. Marcus says 4 full quarters of running. Run the ball to Higgins. Butler is due to snag a few. That's from Lisa. Run Geelong off their legs and we will win. That's from Joe. Yep, that's one thing we've got on them is speed. They played fast last week, but that was more the way they use the ball. Tomorrow night we need to use our legs. We need to run them off their feet. Brad Hill, this is all on you now, mate. Zak Jones isn't there to help you. You've got to break the lines. At halfback, I want you running through the middle. I want the crowd to pump up every time he gets the ball. And Max King to start taking his marks. Max King is due to dominate. He had a good game against West Coast Kick 5. We saw him clunk a few then. Let's see him clunk a few tomorrow night. He always seems to play better against the good teams, I think. Against the better defenses, he seems to have a good day. Hopefully tomorrow night he can prove it to the rest of us. Michael says, gee, Koff is a bit stiff. I think so, but when you've got depth and you've got Highmore, who's a like-for-like playing and in good form in the VFL, you've got to give him a chance. But to bring him in a big game like this with Frawley coming in as well, tinkers with the back line a little bit, but clearly they've prepped for this all week. It's not like Dougal Howard's going to rock up to the game and think, shit, I was expecting to see Joyce here. He knows what's going on. There's got to be a structure in place. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with the matchups, but I'm probably tipping Dukes is going to get Cameron. Mobile, he can go with him all day. Frawley the Beast is just going to handle Tomahawk, and then Wilkie Webster to rotate on Rowan, depending on how close he is to goal and if he gets off the chain at any point. But they're the three we need to mitigate. Who is going to Cairns to see the Mighty Saints? That's from Peter. Potentially, I've looked at flights and geez, they're getting expensive by the day. So the plan is to go to every away game this season, but I feel like that's going to be one that might be a bit tricky to get to. But I'll never say never until the game's actually on and I'm not there. Alan says, who is going to go against the Hawkins in their forward line ruck contest? He always kills teams down there. I don't know. I think Dougal Howard's probably got the hype, but maybe Paddy's going to have to get down there. But that's a very good call because Hawkins does love to push players out the way, either snap the goal from that point in the ground, or actually push the player, get the ball and give the hands quickly. So whether we just let him have the ball and then tackle him instantly, it could be interesting. Because, you could literally have a player just stand there, watch Hawk. He'll either tap it, in which case we've manned up everyone around him, or the second he grabs it, everyone tackle him. Just all Sainers in. Just tackle him and put him down. I'm really nervous. That's from Raphael. Mate, let's face it, we're Saints fans. Even if we're playing North Melbourne tomorrow night, we'd be nervous. It doesn't matter who we're playing. We're naturally just a nervous supporter base, but that also brings more excitement than other supporter bases because when we get up and about, our fans don't expect it to happen, and it's like you wake up on Christmas morning and you're getting every gift you've ever asked for in your entire life, just falls out of the sky. So hopefully tomorrow night we can get that sort of surprise where we're just like, shit, did not expect us to play this good. That'd be awesome. Chris says Jones is a big loss, but opportunity for someone else to run through the middle. We haven't played 4 quarters of good footy against anyone this year. I would say Hawthorn we did. Would love a win, but Geelong are just too skillful and professional. Could be messy. You don't need to say could be messy. This is one thing Saints fans need to just get out of their head. You can be, pessimistic about the game, but don't say it needs to be messy. You don't need to go and say, we're going to get done. Just go there and say, I hope the boys put in a good effort and make us proud. You don't need to say, God, I've had a dream that we're going to get done by 50 million goals. That just doesn't help anyone. We want people to go to the game and support the boys, but how are we supposed to do that when there's a number of Sainters that just love to talk us down and to say that we're going to get done? It doesn't seem very helpful for anyone. King to kick 6, that'd be nice. Are you going to the game tomorrow? That's from Kana. Yep, of course, I'll be there with some Geelong mates, so it's going to be an interesting night, that's for sure. Josephina says, reckon they need to focus on close as well. Pretty dangerous small forward. That's a good call. I think they've got Dalhouse as well. He's in. Who else have they got? Luke Dalhouse, Cam Guthrie. He'll rotate forward and mid. And then you've got Narkle as well, Isaac Smith, who's been in good form, Higgins, who's pretty damaging, and Tom Atkins, and Radical Lee is probably going to rest forward as well. So, yeah, they've got some players that can rotate through there, but we've got some smalls down the other end that, especially Higgins, has been in pretty good form. So, we need to give them stuff to worry about. We always talk about, when we come up against good teams, it's always good to talk about their players and what we're going to do. Jake, who's going to match up on Cameron, Hawkins, this and that. But we need to give them worries too. If we don't give them worries and we just go there worrying about them, and I think that's what we did against even Essendon, we did that against Richmond, we definitely did it against Port, but we were just like starstruck. There's good players, good team, and we're just focusing on, I've got to chase tackle as opposed to I've got to run off and run off and make some space and give an option, which we've done in the last 2 weeks. We've actually backed ourselves. That's worked more than worrying about the opposition. So we're going to have to be defensive at times, obviously. Membry to go back when, they get a bit too many inside 50s in a row and maybe put some scoreboard pressure on us. It'd be good to have Marshall and Ryder go back when they need to take some intercept marks, take some pressure off our backs. So we've got some flexibility, but the key thing is we need to go into this game not fearing Geelong. They've lost 3 times. They've lost to 2 teams that we've lost to this year, I believe. Or at least, Melbourne and who else have they lost to? Sydney and Adelaide. So they've lost to Melbourne, similar to us, but we've also lost to Richmond and Port, who were 2 top 4 teams last season. So our losses and their losses have been very similar. They're 3-2 in their last 5. We're 3-2 in our last 5. So this game on paper is a lot more even than what people are suggesting. I think people are just getting very caught up in the second half from Geelong's win last week against Richmond. Prior to that, they played West Coast, but West Coast were absolutely awful, and Geelong are always going to do that to you if you're not on. But before that, Sydney were 5 goals down. They coughed it up. Melbourne were comfortably the better team against Geelong, and they lost to Adelaide in round 1 and looked pretty average then. So, go into this game, just don't have any expectations, but just go there and back the boys and hope that they deliver a good performance on a Friday night, and you can enjoy the rest of the weekend and watch the replay and be proud of what they dished up. So that's the main message from me. I might leave it there, guys. There's a few comments here, but I'll probably wrap it up. I appreciate everyone watching. If you're getting to the game tomorrow night, cheer loud, wear your bloody colours. Geelong supporters, they're not going to make the trip down the highway. It's too far for them. It's a different ground. They don't like it. So hopefully we get some really good representation at the game, and our supporters are much louder. We get behind the boys, build that momentum, because that helps a shit ton. Just having a vocal crowd, as we know when we travel. I was there against Adelaide. That helps so much to get the energy going. If it's quiet and Geelong are on top, we need to generate some noise. So to anyone going tomorrow night, I know Marshy's going. He's going to be in aisle 29. He's going to be chanting. They're all going to be there. If you're around that area, make sure you get involved and sing the songs as well. I'll be top level, but I'll definitely be joining in if I can hear them from there. Massive night. Good opportunity for the boys. Good warm-up for the Dogs as well to test ourselves against a very good team and a good midfield. I dare say the Dogs have got an even better midfield, so this is a really good test for Bytel, Burns, and these sort of blokes that haven't played on some top-notch players yet. They're going to learn a lot, but hopefully we can go into this game and take it on and put on a good show. Whether that gets us the 4 points or not, we don't know, but just to put on a good show and for neutrals to say, geez, how good was that Geelong Saints game? Did you watch it? That's what we want to hear. We don't want to hear, what a shit game that was. Geelong had it in the bag. Why did they put Saints on Friday night? We've heard that before. Kane Corns has been very vocal about us not getting primetime games based on a few games where we've been done pretty comprehensively. But hopefully tomorrow night we shove it right up a lot of those blokes that have written us off for the year, and we can kickstart our season. Because if you beat Geelong on a Friday night and you go 5-4, geez, the season just suddenly changes, doesn't it? So that's what I'm looking at. So hopefully the boys deliver. Hopefully we all enjoy the footy tomorrow night. But regardless, I'll be back doing the review from the car park as usual, hopefully with a smile on my face. So until then, guys, have a great Thursday night, and I'll see you tomorrow night for Saints versus Geelong after the game. Until then, go Saints.